Hi, and welcome to the Watching Books podcast, the podcast where we discuss books that have only been adapted to both screen and stage production. I'm Victoria.
I'm Laura.
Hi, Mom.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm good. I'm tired. It's been a long day.
I understand
So,
that.
what are you reading?
I am reading. I can't believe this is for the first time. I'm truly shocked. I thought I read it in high school, and I really don't think I did. This is a book club book, and I know absolutely nothing. I've heard of Heathcliff. I've heard of Catherine. I've never read Wuthering Heights. It's taking me a whole lot to get into it. I don't know. I hope it gets better. But one thing that is nice is my lovely bookmark. It's a sheep.
Oh, I couldn't really tell.
It is a sheep. It is hand watercolored, and my sister brought it to me from Ireland. So
Oh,
thanks, Stella. I love it. It is so cute. Signed by the artist. My little sheep watercolor bookmark. It's an original watercolor by Glenn Thompson from Ireland. So it
that's
makes
really
me
neat.
happy every time I open my book, but the book isn't making me very happy. And so this is a really cool book club. It's called the Beehive Book Club or something like that. For the Book Hive Book Club, I think. But anyway, it is on Facebook and you're put into a group. And I've been with my group for a few years, and everyone picks out a book to read. There are 12 of us in a group. Everyone picks out a book. We read our book, we journal about it, and then ship it at the end of the month. And you do that for a year, and you'll read 12 different books that each person has picked out. And then when you're done, and you get your book and your journal back at the end of the year, you get to see what everybody else said about your book that you picked out. And so I think it's great that a classic was picked and we're reading Wuthering Heights. And I'm grateful.
Yeah.
I have never read it. I can't believe I've never read it.
So someone
What about
else in
you?
your club read that one.
They picked it out. Yes. It's a lot of fun. Really fun.
I'm shocked that you've never read that book because I have.
Have you? What did you
Yes.
think?
I hated it. And I was really surprised that I hated it because I loved Jane Eyre so much by Emily Bronte. No, by
It
Charlotte
is
Bronte.
not. Well, I was about to say, this is Emily.
I much prefer Jane Eyre.
I read a really good biography about the Bronte sisters written by Elizabeth Gaskell, who wrote Wives and Daughters, Cranford, North and South, just a fabulous author in her own right. And do you have it?
Yeah, it's
I
stuck on my
passed it on to
bookshelf.
you.
There it is. So for our listeners, I just pulled from my bookshelf Life of Charlotte Bronte by Elizabeth Gaskell, which is what Mom's talking about.
And it is about Charlotte, but she's very intertwined, of course, with her sisters and her father. They're all a huge part of that book, but it was really good. And they knew each other. Elizabeth knew Charlotte. They knew each other well and were very close friends. They met in 1850 and remained friends for the last 5 years of Charlotte's life.
Wow, that is really cool because I love Elizabeth Gaskell. I don't know if there's anything of hers that we'll be able to cover on the podcast, but if anyone is listening, you should look up works by Elizabeth Gaskell because she's had several of her works turned into some great miniseries by the BBC. Fantastic. North and South, Wives and Daughters, Cranford. They are all so good and so worth the
Top
watch.
notch. They're fabulous. She was excellent. I love
Mhm.
her. Yeah.
Yes.
Are you reading anything? Are you able to?
No.
Oh,
I'm able to read enough to keep up with what we're doing on the podcast, but right now my life is just too busy. So nothing new.
hey, at least podcast stuff is good.
Mhm. Yeah. And I'm really appreciative of this episode's book because it was very easy to get through, and I needed that.
And I I am just tickled. This is the first episode that we're doing in which that I grew up with the movie and had no idea it was based on a book. I didn't find out until I started researching for this podcast.
Yeah. And before we get to that, are you watching anything right now?
I watched some documentary stuff for this episode, but that's all.
Cool. I can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah.
I'm getting back into MasterChef, which I forgot how much I loved that show.
I've never seen it.
It's a Gordon Ramsay show. So he and another celebrity chef judge contestants who are what they call the best home chefs. And I think 40 of them come in to start, and then they start, Survivor style, picking them off one by one.
Oh.
But it is so much fun to watch these people cook, and I
What's
wish I
it
could cook.
called?
Master
Top
Chef.
Chef? Oh, Master Chef. Okay. Yeah, I've never seen it.
I watch it while folding laundry, and it's just becoming my routine now. So,
Good to have something to do when you fold laundry.
yeah. So,
I
how do
just
you
fold
feel? Oh, go ahead.
I fold it in the laundry room. I take each piece out of the dryer, fold it, stick it on top of the dryer. And when I'm done, I pick it up and I put it away. And that way it gets done. I don't even have a laundry basket in there because otherwise it would get stuck in a laundry basket and never be put away. So I had to devise my own system so it always gets put away.
Yes, I'm making my own system too. And I saw someone's recommendation was just do a load every night. When you have more than 2 children, do a load of laundry every night because
Hmm.
it's better than having a laundry day where all you're doing all day is laundry, which is what I was doing
Oh,
before, or else it was
uh-uh.
just getting left. That's been working pretty well because it feels less overwhelming. And I try to challenge myself to get it all done in one episode of MasterChef.
It's great to have a goal like that.
Yeah, it helps. It helps. And then because we have 5 members of our family, I separate it all into piles first, depending on each member of the family, and then I just take it pile by pile.
There's just 2 of us. And when I was by myself, I could wash a load, I don't know, every 2 weeks or so.
Well,
Just me.
I realized how spoiled I was because Ray always grew up doing his own laundry, but I did not. I didn't start doing my own laundry till college, you guys.
Okay, so
Like,
because you are our daughter, I too never had to do laundry until I went off to college. My dad always did laundry. And so I passed that on to you.
and I grew up with my dad doing the laundry. I remember he was always the one doing laundry because he didn't want his laundry to turn pink.
Like I said, I was never taught how to do laundry. And so, yes, in the beginning of our marriage, I turned a few things pink and he forbid me from doing laundry.
You know what? Mom, what a brilliant strategy. I think I'm gonna turn some Ray's undershirts pink and see what happens. Maybe he'll never let me do laundry again. That would be amazing. Do you know how much Googling I did to figure out how to do laundry correctly?
But you can fold a fitted sheet. Thanks to
My dad. In my college public speaking class, we had to give a demonstrative speech where we taught people how to do something. And what did I do? I taught people how to fold a dang fitted sheet because these young adults don't know how. But my dad taught me. He taught me how to mow the
I
lawn. He taught me how to garden. You taught me
uh,
everything else. Book-wise,
he's
you had me set.
reading and literature in school and all that.
Even math. You should give yourself a pat on the back for that. You taught me math
We got through it as best we could.
with a few tears. For anyone listening who doesn't get it, I was homeschooled, and math is not our first subject for either of us.
Reading and literature and language arts. That's where we excel.
Yep. Do you know what I'm remembering? And we talked about this. So you just came to visit last weekend. You were here in Kansas.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how the inner theater kid in us comes out on the podcast. And we both have a tendency to project because we're very performative. But on podcast, that's not.
I think I'm a loudspeaker anyway, sometimes, I guess. I will try to tone it down and be softer.
So if I sound any different, it's because I realized that my mic wasn't plugged in. So if things suddenly sound better, that's because I fixed that problem. Okay, Mom. So do you want to announce what book we are watching this week?
I would love to. I did enjoy the book immensely, but it is a movie that I grew up watching and I have watched it countless times. And so I am thrilled to announce that we are doing today Meet Me in St. Louis or St. Louis.
I like your costume piece.
Thank you. I like my hat. I'm all about hats And so is another character in the book and the movie and the stage production. So I can't wait to talk about that.
That is true. So we are going to spoil absolutely everything about Meet Me in St. Louis. The book, the movie, the musical, everything. We might bring in some other media that we might be reminded of, and there are spoiler alerts for those as well. But just so you know, you've been warned. We are going to spoil everything for you about these stories. So if you're familiar with the movie, but you want to read the book and you don't want it to be spoiled, go ahead, stop, go read it now. Good luck finding a copy that doesn't cost $300 because it's out of print. But we will go ahead and spoil it for you now. Thank you. This has been your public service announcement. Meet Me in St. Louis is not just a fabulous movie starring Judy Garland. It is a book originally, and it was written by Sally Benson and published in 1941. I had no idea.
None.
So here's a summary of the book written by Sally Benson. Sally Benson's Meet Me in St. Louis is a warm, witty, nostalgic portrait of family life at the turn of the 20th century. Set between 1903 and 1904, the book is made up of 12 interconnected vignettes, one for each month of the year, chronicling a year in the life of the Smith family of St. Louis, Missouri. The Smiths live at 5135 Kensington Avenue, a comfortable home in a lively, respectable neighborhood. The family consists of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, their only son, Lon Jr., and 4 daughters, Rose, Esther, Agnes, and the youngest, Tootie. Their Irish maid, Katie, completes the household, bustling in and out of the kitchen and offering her blunt commentary on the family's affairs. Benson doesn't build her book around a single continuous plot. Instead, she captures the texture of everyday life, its rhythms, humor, and gentle absurdities. The book is nostalgic, but it's also grounded, filled with the small mischiefs, squabbles, and charms of ordinary family life at the dawn of the modern age. Summer. June through August 1903. The story begins in the heat of June. The Smiths are deeply rooted in their neighborhood and their routines. Rose, the eldest daughter, dreams of romance and society life, while Esther, who is 16, teeters between childhood and adulthood, curious, hopeful, and occasionally dramatic. Lon Jr. has gone off to Princeton, leaving the house full of women and their chatter. The younger girls, Agnes and especially Tootie, are full of mischief. Tootie, only 6, is endlessly imaginative and fascinated by morbid things. She buries her dolls in the yard, telling elaborate stories about their decks. Benson's writing brings out the humor and innocence of these moments without sentimentality. In one story, Millie prepares homemade ice cream and sits on the porch as the summer night deepens, listening to streetcars rattle by and neighbors talk in the dark. It's a vivid evocation of an American summer before radios, cars, and air conditioning, when families talked, teased, and sang together. Autumn, September through November 1903. As summer fades, the Smith's life takes on its fall rhythm, schoolwork, neighborhood gossip, and small draws. In September, Esther struggles to decide whether she's too old to play childish games. Her inner conflict, wanting to be grown up but not ready to let go of make-believe, runs through much of the book. Halloween brings one of the most famous episodes. Tootie and Agnes join the neighborhood children for a night of pranks that feel both dangerous and thrilling. The kids build bonfires in the street and quote, kill neighbors symbolically with handfuls of flour to prove their courage. Agnes insists on taking on the scariest house and returns home proudly, filthy but triumphant. Through these playful scenes, Benson captures the world of childhood with exactness, its logic, its fears, its sense of wonder and daring. Winter, December 1903 through February 1904. As Christmas approaches, the Smith home glows with anticipation. There's shopping to be done, packages to wrap, and music to play in the evenings. Rose is still corresponding with a suitor in New York, and Esther dreams of romance herself, often imagining grand gestures and declarations. The humor of Benson's storytelling comes from how ordinary and human these longings are. The Christmas vignette doesn't revolve around a dramatic revelation, but the cozy rituals that define family life, decorating the tree, visiting neighbors, and staying up by the fire. Even when tempers flare or small disappointments occur, they are smoothed over by the closeness of the household. Benson's winter chapters especially highlight her gift for tone, a blend of humor, affection, and gentle irony. She captures how memory transforms the ordinary into the golden. Spring. March through May 1904. As spring approaches, life in St. Louis hums with excitement over the upcoming World's Fair. The Smiths and their neighbors are full of pride that their city will be at the center of the world's attention. The children mark the change of seasons with kites, new dresses, and fresh pranks. Esther grows more confident, caught between youth and adulthood, while Tootie remains her wild, imaginative self. There are small but telling moments. Mrs. Smith worrying about her children growing up too quickly, Lon Jr. returning home with college stories, or Katie grumbling about the family's disorganization. These tiny details paint a full, affectionate picture of a family that feels entirely real. The final vignette takes place on the day of the fair's opening. The Smiths join the crowds streaming toward the gleaming pavilions, marveling at the electric lights and modern inventions on display. It's both a literal and symbolic moment. The family stepping into a new century full of possibility, but still bound by the deep comfort of home. In
Hmm.
short, Meet Me in St. Louis is not a melodrama or romance. It's a memory, tenderly told. Sally Benson gives readers a year's worth of moments that together form a complete portrait of family, love, youth, and the simple, enduring magic of home in a changing world.
I love this story, and I want to just talk just a little bit about Sally Benson herself. So, Sally Benson based this on her family, and she actually lived at 5135 Kensington Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri. And all of the children are named after her family members.
What?
Sally Benson was Tootie, and she went by Tootie as a little girl. Isn't that
Sally was
amazing?
Tootie?
Sally was
Oh my
Tootie.
goodness.
One thing that ChatGPT surprisingly left out is the big plot point that the dad comes in and says, "We're moving to New York. I've got a job offer there." And they are devastated because they would be leaving and missing the World's Fair, which is the greatest thing that had happened to St. Louis ever. It would put them on the map. And in the book, of course, they don't move. But in reality, Sally Benson and her family moved to New York and missed the fair.
Oh, okay. Wait, wait. So we're having an atonement moment where Sally Benson is rewriting what she wished would have happened? She didn't want to move. She wanted
Yes.
to stay in St. Louis. That is so sad.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Isn't that just the saddest little things? Yeah, they did leave. So bless her heart. That was sad.
Okay, so I'm assuming that based on the way she wrote about it, Sally Benson did not enjoy living in New York. She much rather would have stayed in St. Louis.
Think she would have enjoyed staying in St. Louis more, but if I remember correctly in my research that she and her family made the best of it and they went where her father felt like it was best for them to go. But I do think she would have enjoyed staying in St. Louis.
I'm so glad you shared that with me because I would have had no idea.
Right. It doesn't seem like I heard ChatGPT mention grandpa as part of the family.
I think you're right. I think that was left out of the ChatGPT summary.
And ChatGPT leave him out. I love grandpa. His name is Grandpa Profader. We never hear Profader in the movie. He's just grandpa, but he is one of my favorite characters. And this is an homage to grandpa. He has and this is a quote from the book, weird and amazing variety of hats.
When I was reading this story, I was definitely pronouncing it Grandpa Profiter in my mind.
I am only saying Profader based on a little documentary that I saw about the making of Meet Me in St. Louis, the movie.
I'm gonna take your word on that, and I'm gonna go with Profader then, because I had no idea how to pronounce that. But I absolutely loved his character. And I think the reason he's left out of the summary is because he doesn't hold much weight in the way of plot. To be fair, there isn't much of a plot in the story as it's written. However, what I missed from the summary that I will share now is how Grandpa Profader, you can tell how much he loved the children and he loved being a grandpa. How he kept the magic of the brownies alive at Christmas so that Tootie and Agnes would still believe in brownies, even though it was kind of suspected that they didn't anymore. And how he wanted them to feel the spirit of Halloween and wanted them to experience the spookiness, so he would play tricks on them. How he took Tootie to the fairground and made the most of it, and how he made his daughter the mother figure in the story, Mrs. Smith. He made her a princess when she was a child because he told the story of him being a king at some point. And so he made his daughter a princess, and then her daughters were queen. And there's something about that that just, oh, it touched me so deeply. It was so evident how much he just adored his grandchildren.
Oh, absolutely. In the beginning, when we see Rose for the first time, Grandpa calls her Queen as she's coming down the stairs. And I thought, what is this about? What does he mean? And it wasn't until later on in the book that we hear about this fanciful story of him being a king and they are princesses, but Rose.
Yes, I thought he was being sarcastic because he would say, "Oh, the queen speaks." And I think on some level, yes, he was humbling her. But also, when that came up later in the book, it just touched my heart because it showed how highly he held them in his mind. He
Mhm.
adored these girls. There was absolutely no mention of Lon Jr., who to everyone else in the story was like the shining light of the family because he was a Princeton man. Okay.
A Princeton man a Princeton man who can't manage money because we learned that he spends his entire first semester's allowance on a smoking jacket. And so his mother is freaking out, running around trying to figure out how they are going to get him some more money without letting their father know. And so she puts on this act and ends up getting the money. It was ridiculous.
I would love a version of this story where the father, Mr. Smith, finds out that his son spent all of his allowance for college on a smoking jacket because I would love to see Lon Jr. get it.
I agree. Oh my goodness. And so in the book, Lon plays the mandolin, Rose plays the piano, and Esther and Rose both sing. And they do sing songs that we hear in the movie Meet Me in St. Louis. They sing other things. And so that is pretty neat. So they're a musical family. And I do like that because we are a musical family as well.
Yeah, musical in the way of we enjoy theater and we sing, and you can play the piano and dad can play the guitar. Please don't look to me to play any instruments. That has not happened and it probably will not happen. I'm not as talented as this family.
I'm working on the violin.
Do you want to hear the notes that I put in my phone as I read the book?
Yes.
Okay. The notes that I put in my phone as I read this story. And some of them will make sense contextually, some I might have to explain. But here's just what I wrote. Tootie and Agnes, these are the youngest of the 5 children. Tootie and Agnes are more interesting than Esther and Rose, the older 2 sisters. I said Esther and Rose are vapid and boy crazy.
Boy crazy to the nth degree.
Oh, do you have thoughts, Mother?
They actually drove
Yeah.
me crazy. They could not settle on a guy at all. Should we mention the chicken hearts?
Please go ahead. That's going to come up at some point. You have to talk about it.
Oh my goodness. I have to put my glasses on for this. The chicken hearts. So we see that Rose tells Esther, when you swallow a raw chicken heart, you have to marry the first man you shake hands with. And so at this point in the book, they have traveled for 2 months to visit their grandparents. And so Esther and Rose swallow these raw chicken hearts. They are going, okay, the next man we shake hands with, we have to marry. Well, Rose, there's a man who comes along and she does shake his hand. Well, Esther grudgingly shakes Mr. Frank Gregory's hand. At first, she had said, no, I can't. And then when they shook, she said, Well, don't say you weren't warned.
These chicken hearts, first of all, I don't know how big a chicken heart is. I imagine it's fairly small. I don't care how small it is. I cannot imagine swallowing one raw.
No, me either. I would never, ever, ever do it. But just their little idea, their little game. And Esther, don't say you weren't warned.
So knowing what I know now because of you about Sally Benson, the author, the book says that Tootie is the one, the youngest, the 6-year-old. She's the one who brings her older sisters these 2 raw chicken hearts on a tray. And it makes me wonder, does Sally Benson have a really strong memory of bringing her oldest teenage sisters these raw chicken hearts and watching them swallow them?
That is a very good question. That would be just a wonderful question to be able to ask her if we could.
Why? Why? Do you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of when I don't know what your version of this was, Mom. I'm sure you had some version of this when you were a child, but I know for me, our thing as girls was to do MASH, where we figure out who we're going to marry, where we're going to live, etc., based on this silly little game with pen and paper. Nothing about it required chicken hearts.
No, not at all. We did MASH as well. So that's been around for decades and decades.
Yeah, I don't know what other versions of that there are. I know there are. I know we all have silly little games. I mean, it's as simple as plucking a daisy, like Taylor Swift's new lyric, Daisy's bare naked. I was distraught. He loves me not. It's the same concept of us coming up with these silly little superstitious ideas of
Yes.
what will predict our future when it comes to love and romance and family and future, etc. But eating a raw chicken heart, that's a new one. That's savage.
Most definitely. I would never do it. And another thing that surprised me was we know asbestos is very bad. And Mrs. Smith is in a bedroom and has an asbestos gas grate. And I thought, what are they burning? And I looked it up, and the asbestos gas grate was actually just aesthetic, but it would burn and it would heat the coals or whatever. And it was really for a nicer look in a fireplace.
No, that seems very unsafe. I remember coming across that and I took a screenshot of it because I could not believe my eyes.
I had never heard of that before.
Me either. So one of the reasons that I noted in my phone that Tootie and Agnes were more interesting than Esther and Rose is that one, this surprised me because I love both Esther and Rose in the movie version of this, which we'll get to later. But two, it really made me feel the sadness of leaving girlhood behind because I remember being a little girl and having the freedom to run barefoot through the woods and through the cornfields around our house. And I wasn't afraid of mice and I wasn't afraid of catching bugs and examining them. And I wasn't afraid of getting dirty. And it reminds me of Tootie and Agnes just being so morbid, which is another detail we'll talk about. But they're just being girls, and being a girl in girlhood looks a lot like using your imagination and being outside and enjoying the world and not caring what people think about you. And then as we get older, society just bears down on us and forces us to think about how we're perceived and what people think of us, and it creates this anxiety, and suddenly our minds are consumed by what is that guy over there that I've never met before going to think of how I look, and it just thoroughly depressed me.
I can see that. And I'm so glad you brought up the morbidity because these girls, they love the stories, blood squirting out 12 feet, and Tootie just have dolls that they bury in the ground because they die. And it's the funniest thing how they always talk, oh, and we'll get to the Halloween, but Halloween also is another thing as well, but they are very morbid. There's a lot of talk of blood and guts and burying their dolls and death, and it's a hoot.
I agree. I think it's so funny. It's funny and it's unique. It's very unique to these characters. I don't think I've ever really known characters like Tootie and Agnes before, especially Tootie. She's a hilarious
Right.
six-year-old. And I would like to think that she grew up to be different from Esther and Rose, that she still kept some of that spunk and that weirdness about her because she's so interesting, where Rose and Esther just aren't. They are just after a man, which, to be fair, in 1904 in America, it was very important that a woman secure a man if she wanted to have any hope of stability, certain stability.
And another thing about Tootie and Agnes was they were always being punked. So the older siblings were always playing stupid jokes on them. Not having grown up in a joking family, I don't really care for practical jokes. My husband isn't a jokester. We just didn't do that in my home. We never did that with you. And I just don't care too much for it. And so to read that these older siblings were always pulling jokes on Agnes and Tootie, and especially Tootie since she was the little one, that kind of drove me crazy.
That's interesting because I liked that quality in them, which is funny because no, I did not grow up with practical jokes, and I actually also do not enjoy practical jokes. But reading about it, I liked that it kept the sibling camaraderie and it kept them close knit. It didn't tear them apart. It brought them closer. The joking did. And also, it's implied through the storytelling that Tootie is very aware of the jokes that are being played on her. And she is playing along because she enjoys being included. And she knows that if she plays along, her siblings get a kick out of it. And so there's a reward in it for her. And then I think there are times when she's thoroughly duped, but it's fairly harmless and it's really cute. It's when Tootie and Agnes start playing pranks on the entire town that I start to have issues.
Most definitely. Shame on them.
For real. Tootie and Agnes get the bright idea to stuff some clothes to look like a body and put it on the trolley tracks because their desire is to see the trolley get derailed, which is terrifying for the passengers of the trolley.
Thankfully, they did not succeed and nothing happened, thankfully. And yes, that was horrible. And I want to go to the Halloween part simply because it kind of goes along with all of this joking and stuff. Back in the day, and this was part of the documentary I watched. Back in the day, people in the neighborhood would leave out a lawn chair or leave out a rug and let the family know, hey, just make sure I get this back when you're done stealing it tonight. And so they played along with these kids' jokes. They would leave out old stuff that could be burned because the kids would make this huge bonfire in the middle of the road and burning garbage and stuff. And this is what they did for Halloween. There was no trick or treating. This is what they did. And then they would kill the grumpy person in the neighborhood or the grumpy people in the neighborhood by taking a handful of flour and throwing it in their
And that is
face.
still
And so
in
they're,
quote.
yes, in quotes, they killed. They didn't really. There was no killing at all. It was just this little thing that they did. And that is so bizarre. And I remember watching the movie as a little girl and asking my dad, what is going on? What are they doing? I didn't understand.
I think that's funny because I'm pretty sure I had a similar experience to you and asking you, what is going on with this Halloween? So one of the reasons why I chose Meet Me in St. Louis for October, for this being our spooky season, is because the Halloween scene in the movie just stands out to me. I look forward to it every time I watch the movie. I love watching Tootie and Agnes go out for Halloween because I think it's such a different picture of what America looked like at Halloween in the early 1900s. It's not what we know now. It's a whole bunch of children, unsupervised, going outside their homes to steal furniture from people's porches, set it on fire, throw flour in people's faces and say, I hate you, in order to, quote, kill them. And that's what they thought was a fun night of Halloween. It cracks me up. I think it's hysterical. I always look forward to it. And is there a small, small part of me that wishes that's how we did Halloween? Yes, because one, I know my 12-year-old would absolutely love that version, and two, I don't know, I think I kind of would have loved it too.
It is so different, definitely a different life. The kids were trusted to go out to start a fire, and they were given free rein, which we do not see that now. There's a lot of helicopter parenting out there, and the kids would never be trusted to build a bonfire in the middle of the road.
No, my child and fire, ooh, they love each other, but they don't go well together. I'll just say that. And this, yeah, that's one of the things that stuck out to me. I was not disappointed by the book. The book met my expectations when it came to the Halloween scene, and I still love it in the movie. I prefer it in the movie because I love Margaret O'Brien so much, and we'll talk about her. And then seeing the stage version, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we're talking about this because I can't wait to talk about what it looked like on stage.
I agree. We will get to that though. October, we just see it end with the whole Halloween thing and the whole bonfire. In the movie, it continues, but it doesn't in the book. In November is when we see the whole trolley thing about them stuffing the body, stuffing the clothes to make it look
Yeah.
like a body on the
Yes.
tracks.
Yeah.
And that's when,
Yes.
yes, that's when
Yes.
Tootie ends up with a bloody face and she's dirty and she's carried to the house. And she just keeps saying, he tried to kill me. And everybody is wondering who and what is going on and why are you bleeding?
Yeah, I think that's something we should say. That's a big, big difference between the book and the movie and the stage version. The movie and the stage version are very similar. So it's very clear watching the stage version of Meet Me in St. Louis that it was more inspired by the movie than it was the book. It did pull some inspiration from the book that we don't see in the movie, but ultimately it is a stage version of the movie. The book is written in scenes. So like my ChatGPT summary said, it is written in vignettes over 12 months from 1903 to 1904. But what's most important, I think, to pull from that is that each month is just one big event that we see. It might happen over a couple of days or it might happen over a couple weeks, but ultimately we only get really the sense of one big event in each month over that 12-month period. So what happens in 12 months in the book is put in a shorter amount of time, basically just the 4 seasons in the movie, where they might take a few events that happened in one season in the book and put it into a more
Concise.
compact version within the movie. Yes, concise. It's told more concisely in the movie, and personally, I think it works better, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, I thought it went really, really well. The book and the movie are very similar with this scene where Tootie is bleeding and the doctor's called in, and lo and behold, she's got hair in her hand. Tootie does. And she keeps saying, he tried to kill me. And it was Barton Wagner. He's the boy next door. There is no Barton Wagner in the movie. John Truitt is the boy next door in the movie. In reality, John Truitt, I'm not sure if that was his real name, but Sally Benson said that he and Tootie were actually about the same age, but the movie made him a teenager to create a romance.
That's really interesting. Yes, I want to talk about the book, but I'm so excited to talk about the movie because I cannot tell you how much I missed John Truitt reading the book. I just kept waiting for John Truitt to show up. I wanted Warren Sheffield and I wanted John Truitt, and neither of them showed up. And it made me really sad because what we just got with Esther and Rose were just boy after boy after boy after boy after boy after boy after boy until finally I was at the very end and we have these two new boys show up. Well, one of them I think we already knew from earlier. Who knows? There were so many, I'm not even sure if it was the same one or not. And then his little brother, who we had never met before. And I'm like, okay, great. I don't care. I don't care about these guys because I haven't gotten to know them. I don't care. So I was really disappointed that we didn't get the John Truitt and the Warren Sheffield that I love from the movie. And that is all I will say about that.
We got to see Warren very, very briefly when he made the phone call from New York, and they took it straight from the book for the movie, and that was really, really good. I enjoyed that a lot. Except that in the end, Rose was like, well, just forget him. He's calling me for no reason at all. So that was kind of funny. And she just sort of turned away from him after that phone call because she thought it was just ridiculous.
Yeah, but the problem is it was never Warren Sheffield. Yes, they took that scene from the book and they put it in the movie, and I'm so glad they did because it's hysterical, but it wasn't Warren Sheffield in the book. It was some other guy by some other
You're
name. I
right.
think his name was John, but it wasn't John Truitt.
You were right. His name is John Shepherd. He went to Yale, and his dad was a judge, and that's about all we learn about him. You're right.
Yeah. So that's what made me sad is yes, we get similar scenes that we see in the movie, but what the movie did better, and we haven't gotten to the movie yet, I am cognizant of that, but what the movie did better is in making the story more concise, they made male characters that we loved and got to know. And they also made Esther and Rose more interesting. Were they still only focused on male attention and trying to win the perfect husband? Yes, that was their goal. But they were more endearing and they weren't so, oh my gosh, just I don't even know how to describe it other than boy crazy. I cannot think of another term to use, and it feels so uncharitable, but it really got on my nerves how in every month there was some new guy, and I'm like, I can't keep track of all these men. How do they do it?
I agree.
So this is what's funny is I took some screenshots of the story as I read it. And the very first screenshot I have is from page 128, a quote from Esther. And Esther says, "As a matter of fact, I think we talk too much about boys. I think we should really try to get our minds off them." Do they? No.
Oh, they never do. In fact, the parents go out and Esther and Rose do have a party where 6 boys come over. No girls, 6 boys come over. And then one of them says, there are boys in the house. And of course, it's Tootie and Agnes on the stairs. And that's when they come downstairs. And this happens in February. And Agnes is the one who says, I could do the cakewalk if Esther will do it with me. And so they do this little dance and Tootie sings the same song. Or maybe it was Agnes. I was drunk last night,
No,
dear
you're right.
mother. It was Tootie sings the
Yeah.
same song.
Mm.
And that was pretty fun that they included that. That was a song of that time.
Yeah. So for anyone who may be confused, what mom is talking about is a scene in the movie that comes up where the girls are hosting, the older girls, Esther and Rose, are hosting a party for all of their friends, except that there are boys and girls there. And it's a very fun scene, but Tootie and Agnes feel like they're missing out on the fun. And so they come out in their nightgowns and they're snooping on the landing of the stairs and they finally get invited to the party and they sort of take over the show. At least Tootie does in the movie, where she
Well,
sings and she dances for everybody and it's really cute. But in the book, this looked different because it was just boys.
it's the same thing, except it just happens to be all boys there. But the same thing
Yes.
happens.
It happens at a different season in the book than it does in the movie. And also, Agnes has her moment in the sun, but also Tootie has her moment in the sun at the party. Whereas Agnes, I actually made a note about this in my story. I said the movie highlights Judy Garland and Margaret O'Brien. So if we're looking at the two sets of sisters, we have the older two and the younger two, and they're usually always together, 2 and 2. The movie highlights Judy Garland as Esther. She is the one we want to watch and pay attention to. When it comes to the younger sisters, the movie highlights Margaret O'Brien, who plays Tootie, the younger of the two. So in the movie, Rose and Agnes, whatever.
Yes. There was a very strange scene in the book. There's a Madame Roditi giving an at-home, and there's a French woman there for the fair. There was also a Chinese woman and a German countess. They were so ugly about these people. It was Esther Rose and their mother, and they wanted to meet these foreign women, which I think was a big deal then, because if you think of us now, we can fly anywhere. We are used to seeing ethnicities of all kinds from all over the world. And it must have been something so unique at that time. But they were so ugly about the people. It was quite shocking.
Yeah, I have a note on this. All I said was March 1904. That was the title of the chapter that you're referring to. And I could not think of anything kinder to say other than, wow, this is the most racist chapter I've ever read. This is racially insensitive and culturally ignorant. And my jaw was dropped the whole time. Every time I thought I had already been shocked in this chapter, oh, nope, it was one-upped. I don't even wanna talk anymore about it because I just wanna pretend like this chapter doesn't exist.
It was so good that they did not put that in the movie. It was quite shocking. I just wrote, "Horrible." It was horrible, but there was one Asian man, a Chinese man, and I liked him a lot, Mr. Feng Zhu, and he asks, "Why do you say fall in love? Why don't you say rise to love?" I really liked that quote. Why do we say fall in love? Why don't we rise to love?
I really liked that quote too. And then I was immediately disappointed because of Rose's superiority following that in her response just to all the women and then to the Chinese men that they meet and they talk to. They come away from that, I guess, quote, at home, whatever that is, really loving Asian culture and Chinese culture, but I did not feel very good.
It was pretty bad. And that they would ask the Asian men, "Don't you think the Countess is ugly?" To make themselves feel more
Mhm.
beautiful, maybe? I don't know. It was very bizarre.
Yeah, no, I hated that whole chapter. So, can we move on to one of my favorite notes that I took? So, on page 217, quote, Mrs. Smith opened the door to the kitchen and glanced in. They didn't wash the dishes, she said. I really think I should clean up and not leave that mess for Katie in the morning. Come to bed, Anna, and stop fussing, Mr. Smith said. End quote. They go upstairs. They don't worry about it anymore. Let's resume. Quote, Grandpa Perfader went into the kitchen and shuddered at what he saw. Pans stood soaking in the sink and a few dishes were set carelessly on the kitchen table. End quote. My thought as I read this was, Grandpa Perfader is going to do the dishes so that Mrs. Smith and Katie don't have to worry about it. And then I kept reading. Quote, as he reached up to turn out the light, end quote. And I thought, oh, never mind. He's a man. Silly me. What was I thinking?
A man in
Um,
1904.
right, of course, culturally, that's what we're looking at. Yeah, no, we don't live in that day and age, thankfully, but my goodness. Yeah, silly me for thinking a 1904 man would stoop to do the dishes. But then, okay, so what I really wanna get to is how at the very end, we're in the final chapter, it is, May of 1904, and the Smith family is at the World's Fair of 1904 in St. Louis. So exciting. My only quote from the whole chapter was Lon and Ida, best couple? And this is because Ida is a random character that I don't think we saw in the rest of the book, but she's a friend of Esther and Rose's. And Esther and Rose try to set her up with Lon, and Lon ends up being infatuated with her. So it's a good pairing. They spend the time at the fair together. They're really cute. I loved that. And it made me sad that we got none of that through the rest of the book. It's just in the final part of the last chapter. My very last note that I made was, we finally get John! And then I followed that up with, more? Okay. So it wasn't John Fruitt, who I was hoping for. No, it's some guy's little brother named John Orr who gets paired up with Esther, and I'm bitter about it because I don't know anything about him. And also, the first person he looked at was Ida, who happened to be with Lon, and because he sees that she's with Lon, he goes, oh, well, okay, I guess I'll settle for Esther. Yeah, wasn't pleased with that. So as far as romance goes, this book sucks.
Yes, I wrote that down. Rose was with Douglas Moore, and Esther was with John Moore. And of course, then we saw Lon with Ida. But Agnes has the last line of the book right here where we live, right here in St. Louis. It's a wonderful, wonderful line, but it's Agnes's. She closes and ends the book.
I think the final thing that I will note is Agnes got a whole lot more time in the story than she does in the movie, and so does Rose. And I don't know if you agree with this, but it seemed to me that reading the story, a lot of the focal point seemed to be on Rose and her experience and her perspective. I did not get at all that Esther was meant to be a main character, which is what we're meant to take away from the movie, because of course the incredible Judy Garland is Esther, so naturally she's the lead.
Well, we need to talk about the movie. We need to just go right into it.
Go ahead, take it away because you introduced me to it.
The movie opened November 22nd, 1944 in St. Louis, Missouri. That was a really big deal. Sally really wanted it to open in her hometown. And so that was a really nice thing that they were able to do for her. And I already said the Smiths lived at the same address that Sally Benson lived in growing up. I absolutely love that. So this, of course, stars Judy Garland. She was 21 years old. She did not want to do this movie at all. She had been playing a little girl. She'd been playing an ingenue for so long, and she didn't want to continue to be this little girl in the movies. And Arthur Freed, who produced this film, talked her into doing this role. And in the end, she said she was so glad she did. This was the first movie where she felt beautiful. And that is what Judy Garland said. Then she ended up falling in love with Vincent Minnelli, the director, and they got married. And Liza Minnelli. So it was a very good role. And believe it or not, this was her biggest movie she ever did. It even surpassed The Wizard of Oz.
Are you
Can you
serious? I never would have guessed.
I
I mean,
know.
I could have seen this one coming second or being close to like A Star is Born when she did that, but I definitely would have thought The Wizard of Oz would have been her biggest film that she ever did. But that makes me so happy because I love Meet Me in St. Louis so much. I think it's my favorite film that I've ever seen her do. It's my favorite
Yeah.
Judy Garland film. Sally Benson wanted the premiere of the movie to be in St. Louis. So she was alive during this process, which I guess would make
Yes.
sense. I don't know how old she would have been. I'm really bad with timelines. We have already established on this podcast. She was alive and was she part of the process? Do you know?
I don't know if she helped write the screenplay or not. I'm not sure. But she was very much a part of, she may have helped. She may have gotten credit for the writing part of the screenplay. I'll look it up real quick.
And Judy Garland, I had no idea she was only 21. Wild. So talented. And we keep mentioning The Wizard of Oz, and I like to assume that most of our listeners are already going to be aware that Judy Garland was and always will be the Dorothy Gale from the Wizard of Oz movie. But if you didn't know that before, now you do. You know who we're talking about. Judy Garland is Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz, and we love her.
Sally Vincent does have credit as a writer for this film.
Oh,
And so Lucille Brimmer, who played Rose, the older sister, she too was 21, and she is a former Rockette.
that's so cool. I did not know that about her.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Margaret O'Brien, I think, was 7, and she was Tootie, and she had nothing but good things to say about Judy Garland and working with her. And I love this little bit. This is pretty neat. So the trolley song is a huge, huge number in the movie. And they released this song to the public before the movie. And it sold almost 500,000,000 copies of this song before the movie ever came out.
Okay, Mom, what year did this movie come out? Did you look that up?
22nd, 1944.
Oh my goodness. So this was only a few years after the book was published. And Judy Garland would have been on the record that was released. But back in the mid 1980s, they sold 500,000,000 copies of that record. That is insane to me.
Insane. It was huge.
As it should be, because the trolley song is iconic.
So the writers of the songs, when they said they were going to have a trolley, they thought, oh, okay, so we're writing a fun love song on a trolley. And the director was going, no, I want a song about a trolley. They're like, about a trolley? How do we write a song about a trolley? And I think at one point they heard the clanging of a trolley. They went, clang, clang, clang went the trolley, and it progressed from there.
Clang, clang, clang went the trolley. Ding, ding, ding went the bell. Yes. It's a silly song. It's a fun song. And it's also romantic.
We see John Truitt, who is played by Tom Drake, and he's finally made it on the trolley, and he sits next to her, and she's Oh, did I just sing that right there in front of him?
Okay, this is so hard for me because I just I need everyone who has never seen this movie to go watch it immediately because it's so good. Can we please talk about John Truitt because I love John Truitt.
Go for it.
Okay. Oh, what I wish the book had. And I know that we get the movie because of the book, so I'm grateful for the book. But what I wish the book had was John Truitt and Warren Sheffield. I love these two guys. There's not much to them. There's not a lot of character growth. Don't expect it. Don't look for it. We're not doing that, okay? These are just two like adorable, very young men who fall in love with a couple of very adorable young ladies. There's nothing deep to it. Don't look for anything deep. It's just sweet and it's great for the girl who loves a chick flick or the guy. I know you're out there, men. I know you are. But John Truitt is just this adorable boy next door who lives next door to the Smiths. And what I really appreciated reading the book, and I screenshot it because I was so excited, is that they live at 5135 Kensington Avenue. And that is a line in the song that Judy Garland sings titled The Boy Next Door. She is singing about how much she loves the boy next door. She's never met him, and he pays absolutely no attention to her. But she has a line where she sings, though I live at 5135 Kensington Avenue and he lives at 5133. I loved seeing that that's the exact address that's in the book. Now I'm hearing from you that that was actually Sally Benson's address.
Well,
That's wild.
Boy Next Door actually lived at 5137, but the writers had to make it rhyme, so they changed it to 5133.
That's funny. Well, he's still next door, and it's still
Yeah.
Kensington Avenue. I'll take it. But that is one of my favorite songs in the movie, which is funny because as a child watching this movie, that is the song, The Boy Next Door, that Judy Garland sang. That is the scene I always fast forwarded through because I thought it was boring. And then I experienced love for the first time, and suddenly the song mattered.
That song, when I see Judy Garland and how gorgeous she is, Vincent Minnelli knew how to frame a scene, and she was framed singing in a window, in a mirror, and she was so beautiful. Her costumes were gorgeous. She truly was beautiful in this movie. But ever since I was a little girl, I would see her, and especially in that scene, for whatever reason, I would see her and think she looked like my mother. Had a lot of the same facial features, and I wish I had a picture of my mother here, but I don't. But I can definitely see my mother and Judy Garland, just the way my mother looked, black and white picture, and so I always loved that scene. That's funny that you didn't. I loved her striped skirt because they were vertical, and then her socks, she had striped socks, they were horizontal. And I was always thought, okay, that's a little weird, but it works.
Yes, it's her cute little tennis outfit. I love that scene now. But I do remember being a kid and being like, "Ah, okay, it's the boring part. Fast forward." But you're right,
Yeah.
Vincent Minnelli. Oh man, I would have loved to have an actor for him because he truly sought out the best shots of his actors to put them in the best light, to make them look the best. He really cared about how they came across on screen. And we see this with any other of his works. And the only one that's coming to mind right now is Brigadoon because he does such a brilliant job with that one. But he does a great job with The Pirate as well. Any Vincent Minnelli film, he paid such close attention to detail. And I think that's what we see. We talked about this with Cyrano. Similar to Joe Wright in modern day, who we're used to, Vincent Minnelli cared about each frame of the film being beautiful.
Mm,
And that at any point, if you were to pause the film, it would be a work of art. And I think we see
yes.
that in Minnelli and we see that in Joe Wright, who directed Cyrano, which we talked about previously. So if you haven't heard that episode, go listen to our Cyrano episode when we did Cyrano de Bergerac.
Yes. This movie is Vincent Minnelli's first film that he did in color. So not only was he creating this beautiful picture, but he knew how to use the perfect colors to create gorgeous scenes throughout the entire movie.
And it wasn't tacky. He didn't
Mm-mm.
use color just because he could, just because Technicolor was available. He used complementary colors. And it's just a really the only word I can think of is when you watch this movie, it is so satisfying from beginning to end.
Oh, it really is, and I think that's why I've watched it countless times. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen it. I didn't even have to watch it again and taking my notes. I knew exactly what they put into the movie from the book because I know this movie backwards and forwards. They did draw a lot of the dialogue from the book, which I appreciated, and I thought it just worked really well.
Okay. So let's talk about the iconic scenes. So as I think through the film, I think the opening stands out to me because we see Agnes come in her wet underclothes, basically. And the whole beginning of the movie is different characters singing Meet Me in St. Louis. And it's very charming because the scene passes from character to character as they're all singing the same song. What I love about Grandpa is he doesn't know all the words to Meet Me in St. Louis. So he just sort of mumbles the verses he doesn't know. I love that little detail. But we get to see him singing it. We hear Agnes singing it. We just get this beautiful image of summer life for rich white people in 1903. Must have been nice because they all seem really happy. And so we have that iconic first scene. And then we get little tastes of who these characters are. But then the next scene that you think of that stands out is that telephone scene at
Yes.
dinner where Rose gets the phone call long distance from Warren Sheffield. Oh my word. This scene makes me laugh every single time. It's perfect. Don't even argue with me about it. It just is.
Crazy thing to me is in the book, the mother calls the dad at work and says, "Hi, Rose is going to be getting a long distance phone calls." In the movie, though, they change it to where they don't want the dad to know she's getting this phone call. They're going to have dinner an hour early so that she can talk in private because they think since he's calling from New York, of course he's going to propose. And so I did find that interesting that how they put a little bit of drama in it in the film that they didn't do
Mhm.
in the book. It wasn't there. And
Yeah.
the dad refused to eat an hour early. It was too hot to eat an hour early. And then he got to take a ride down the steps on Tootie's roller skate.
That is one of my favorite parts of this scene. There's the anticipation build because we know the entire family has been trying to dupe the father by making him eat dinner an hour early so that Rose can accept a long distance phone call from a boyfriend without dad knowing. Because the phone, of course, is placed in the dining room. So they all have to clear out of there before they expect the phone to ring. They're all in on it, except the poor father. He's not allowed to know. One of my favorite parts of this scene in the movie is everyone sitting at the table. They're all just waiting there in silence for the dad to arrive. And he insists on arriving on time at 6:30, not 5:30. No way. He's going to take his nice bath, thank you, and then he will show up at 6:30. And all you hear in the silence as you're watching these characters is just this awful clattering above them. And there's a pause, and Tootie, the youngest, goes, "I remember where I left my other skate." And then the father walks into the room and goes, "Tootie, remind me to spank you after dinner." Oh my gosh, it gets me every time. And the dad is brusque and he's harsh, but he is so good-natured. He loves his family. He really does. And man, I mean, even when he realizes his whole family has been keeping a secret from him, and he's hurt, and he takes a minute to think about that. But he's going to lay down the law. He's going to make sure they know he is the head of the family. No one's going to fool him in his own home. So from now on, he's going to answer the telephone himself. If any calls come through, he'll be the one taking them. And then immediately after he says this, the phone rings. And he says, "Rose, you answer that."
Yes, he had already answered it once. And he's saying, "No, I'm not calling New York. What is this?" And he hangs up. And they're devastated. That's when he finds out about the phone call that was supposed to be coming for Rose. So, yes, he does. He loves his family so much. So, the dad is played by Leon Ames, and his name is Mr. Alonzo Smith in this role. And yes, it's just a fabulous, fabulous role for him. I adore him.
Hmm.
And the mother is
Mary
Mary
Astor,
Astor.
Mom.
Mary Astor is the mom. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, my gosh, the mom. I need to put an image of her.
Yes, dude.
I
That's
need to put an image
gorgeous.
of from when she was oh my gosh. It looks like I don't know if she did vaudeville or if she did any kind of stage acting, but it certainly looks like it based on her IMDb photo. But wow, she has some amazing photos.
Harry Davenport played Grandpa, and he is best known for playing Dr. Mead in Gone with the Wind, if you've seen that. He is
Mhm.
very well known for that role, but this, of course, was another iconic role for him. And then Katie, the Irish maid, was played by Marjorie Main. She didn't sound Irish at all. I don't know if she was Irish in this, but
No.
I love her as Katie. She's best known for playing Ma Kettle. There were these Ma and Pa Kettle movies. I have never seen one, but I have heard of it before. And she was very well known for playing Ma Kettle. But I love, love,
I
love
just remember
her
always
as
loving her.
Katie. She's a hoot.
Yes. Love her. She's not Irish at all, but I just love her. What does she say? A cabbage saved is a cabbage earned. I don't remember what she
Mm,
says, but there's some line about a cabbage. And yeah,
absolutely.
she's great. Harry Davenport, he's also mom. So at some point, I'm sure we can do Gone with the Wind, obviously, Mr. Mead. We can do that on the podcast. We can also do another one that he's in, which is a little bit more obscure. He plays the king in one version of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's the Charles Laughton version.
Oh, very cool. I've seen him then. I've seen that. Okay, so we've talked about that scene,
Mhm.
Halloween.
Talked about it when I talked about the book. It's just Tootie and Agnes dressed up as silly little ghosts with all these crazy children going and throwing furniture on a big bonfire. I don't know why I like it so much. I just do. I love it. It's a Halloween I've never experienced and never will. And I honestly, as a mother, I don't want to. But I think what's interesting is that Agnes was the one in the book who went and quote unquote killed one of the scary neighbors in the neighborhood, but it's Tootie who does it in the movie. So this is kind of what I was talking about where
Mm.
Margaret O'Brien was favored and they highlighted her more than they did poor Agnes. But Tootie is the one who says, "I'll take the Brockhoffs," and she goes to this neighbor's house and she's got all these crazy stories about why he's evil, and scary, and they're just neighborhood rumors among children. But she takes her little bag of flour and this poor older man opens the door and he says, "Well," and she says, "I hate you, Mr. Brockhoff," and she throws the flour in his face and runs away. And what I love is that we get a shot of him afterwards, and he takes a handkerchief out of his pocket, he wipes his face, and he just starts laughing. And I think it's adorable that he knows the kids are just out there doing their Halloween kid stuff, and he's in on it, and he's happy to be a part of it. I think it's so endearing and so cute. And then Tootie gets all of the acclamation for being the one to kill the scary neighbor.
Oh, yes, it is just fabulous. And now this is where we see John Truitt come in. And so it's saying Halloween time. They hear the trolley, they hear Tootie scream. Esther and Rose go running to find Tootie, and she's got a busted up lip. She's crying, and she keeps saying, "He tried to kill me." And then she ends up saying that it was John Truitt, that he hit her, he kicked her, and he was trying to kill her. Esther was livid. And she goes next door and she punches him and kicks him in the shin. And she says, "Well, why don't you just pick on somebody your own size? Why do you have to pick on a little girl?" And she left. Oh, and then he's trying to hold her and she bites his hand. It's very
Mhm.
funny. And it ends up, Agnes finally comes in and explains exactly what happened, how they had stuffed these clothes so that hopefully the trolley would derail. And John Truitt saved Tootie, and she was fighting him off because they had wanted to see this happen. But he took them away
Mhm.
so that they wouldn't get in trouble. And so in the book, Esther does go to beat up this guy, but she never apologizes to him or anything. In the movie, she goes back and
I
she
know she goes
apologizes.
back. I think the best part. Yes. Oh, I love John so much. Yeah, he saves Tootie because he doesn't want her to get in trouble with the police because he knows that she and Agnes are the ones who stuffed the body and put it on the trolley tracks. But Esther, believing her little sister, who is a notorious liar and she should have known better, she goes next door and beats up the love of her life, the guy she's crazy about. She beats him up and bites him and then has to go back and eat crow. and apologize. But what I love is that she sees him when she goes back after it's revealed that Tootie was a big old liar. She goes back next door and she's trying to talk to him and she looks at his face and she goes, "Did I do that?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, you did this and this and this and this." But what's great is that's where they have their first kiss.
They do.
And we get a little callback to another scene earlier when he's at a house party of theirs, and she is really hoping that he's gonna kiss her, but all he does is shake her hand and say, "You've got a really strong grip for a girl." We get a cute little callback to that after they've kissed. He kisses John kisses Esther, and she looks stunned because she didn't see it coming, and he's got her by the shoulders, and she doesn't know what to say or how to respond, so she just goes, "You've got a mighty strong grip for a boy," and then she just wanders home in a daze, and I love Judy Garland's performance through that whole thing.
She's perfection. Just absolutely wonderful. So that's Halloween. And
So
then
we
another iconic scene is, of
Mhm.
course, Christmas. And talk about stunning. Judy Garland in that red dress.
Mhm. I totally agree. I was actually thinking that in watching the musical, I remember so it got to Christmas in the musical, and I was watching it going, "Oh my gosh, I hope she's in red. I hope she's in red. I hope she's in red." Because Judy Garland's dress in this movie is stunning. This was before Pretty Woman. This was the red dress.
Oh, she is drop dead gorgeous. And she gets a very sad message from John Truitt. He comes to see her. They're supposed to be going to the dance together. And he tells her tuxedo is in the cleaners and they are closed. And he can't get it. And he can't take her to the dance. And she's devastated. And so Grandpa overhears the whole thing. And he's just wonderful and says that he's got a tux and he had pulled it out of the mothballs. And he asks her to if she would like to go with him, and she, of course, would be honored to go with him. It is the sweetest thing. I just love that grandfather. He is wonderful. And sadly, Rose's date couldn't go. So she was going with her brother. How do you even describe that scheme, Victoria?
Rose and Esther have this mean, mean scheme. They want to humiliate Lucille. Lucille is the
Thank
woman that Lon wants to go with. And they want to humiliate her, not because she has hurt their brother and she's going with Warren, but because she's from the East. So she must be a snob.
Yes, they fill up her dance card with the worst
Oh, please,
dancers.
by the way, can you please explain what a dance card is? Because this is not something we folks use nowadays.
Well, the women back then would be given a card and all of their dances would already be assigned to different men so that they could spread out their dances to a lot of different people. And they would wear this little card on their wrist and they could refer to it. Oh, I have you for the next dance, whoever this man is. And so Rose and Esther filled out her dance card for her and they chose the worst possible dancers they could possibly have chosen for her to keep her away from um Lon and Warren.
And that results in one of the best scenes in the movie that I think, I don't know for sure, but I think must have definitely inspired one of the dance scenes in The Princess Diaries 2, which is kind of a weird reference. But I can only ever think of Meet Me in St. Louis anytime I watch Anne Hathaway dancing with these wild choices of men in that scene.
Absolutely. Lucille comes up to Rose and says, "Look, we're both adults here. I want to be here with Lon and you want to be here with Warren. Why don't we just swap?" And so, of course, Rose, "Okay, yes, let's do that." And Rose goes up to Esther, "The plans have been changed. Hint, hint." And so the grandfather is no fool. And he's talking to Esther when Lucille comes up to Esther. "Oh, I believe you have my dance card." And the grandfather's looking at Esther. "Yes, you have her do you have her and Esther's like, "Well, yes, I do. I accidentally put my name on yours. This is yours." And so she gives Lucille her dance card, which is filled with lovely men to dance with. And Esther is stuck dancing with all the horrible dancers. And it's very, very, very funny.
It's so funny. But lovely grandpa finally rescues her from these terrible dancers, and he starts dancing with her, and he gives her this relief. Oh, and we get the part that my chick flick heart just loves every time I watch this movie. It's so cheesy, but I love it every time. Grandpa waltzes her around this beautiful, enormous Christmas tree. He dances her behind the Christmas tree. And by the time they get out to the other side, we see that suddenly she's dancing with John Truitt in his beautiful tux.
I don't find that cheesy at all. And the reason why is here she's dancing with grandpa and says, I finally feel like I'm dancing with a human being. And you can see grandpa notice John Truitt. He sees him
Mhm.
and he goes, well, I'm going to waltz Esther over there to him. And you see
Mhm.
that, and I love that. It's great direction, great act. And he makes a beeline to that tree and around the tree, and then out comes Esther and John. It is a lovely, lovely scene and a lovely moment. It is
Mm.
so beautiful. It's so well done. Kudos to the grandpa and kudos to Vincent Minnelli for creating that lovely, lovely scene.
Yes, I love it every time. And you're right. I can picture Grandpa's face perfectly in my mind when he sees John and how his face lights up and he just like pushes Esther toward the tree.
And that's
It's
the
so
brilliance of
wonderful.
it. We do not see him. We don't see John Truitt. We see the grandfather's reaction. And if you've never seen the movie, you can go, what is grandpa looking at? What has made him do this beeline waltz over there?
Mhm.
And it's just so beautifully done.
I love it. So we have three happy couples. We have Lon and Lucille, we have Warren and Rose, and we have John and Esther. And then we have the sad moment outside the dance. We don't see the proposal, but we know in the aftermath that John has just proposed to Esther and she's crying and he feels bad because he didn't mean to make her sad with his proposal. But we didn't talk about why Esther's crying. I don't think we brought it up at all. What's the big problem that these wonderful protagonists are facing, Mom?
So in the book, the father says we're going to move to New York, but within just a little discussion with his wife only, he says, okay, we're not going to go to New York.
No, the family is
What?
there. They hear. He leaves her to break the news to the whole family. He's like, "Okay, you tell the girls, bye." And he dips out. And so she, crying, breaks the news to her daughters. And then he comes back and all the girls are crying and he watches how they're all so devastated and he hears their reasons and then he's like, "Ah, never mind."
It's the same night, though. That's my point. That was the same night. In the movie, it's 2 months, and they're still talking about moving to New York. So they're thinking this is the last Christmas they're gonna have here in St. Louis, the last dance they'll have, all of this stuff, and she tells John, "Yeah, I'm moving to New York." And that's really
Mm.
hard because that is still hanging over them. They're very sweet, very, very touching, that little scene. But Rose and Esther do go home, and we see Esther and Tootie up in Tootie's room. Tootie was still awake. Esther could hear her playing a music box. And that is when we get the iconic song sung by Judy Garland, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. It was written for this movie. And I have to tell you, it at first wasn't going to sound quite like it did. The tune was the same, but the lyricist, he's so funny. He played it and Judy went, "That is so sad. I can't sing that. You have got to change the lyrics. I can't sing that to little Margaret O'Brien." And this is what it was. It was, "Have yourself a merry little Christmas. It may be your last. Next year we may all be living in the past."
I did not know that.
When he was writing this song, it was a beautiful little piece. He didn't have lyrics yet, and he could not get past a certain point. So he just shelved it. And so this almost didn't make anything. Well, Vincent Minnelli said, "Hey, I need a Christmas song." His partner said, "What were you playing the other day? That was really lovely." "Oh, it's just this little piece, and I can't get past a certain point." And he played it, and together they came up with Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
An iconic Christmas song that we still know today. Even if people are familiar with the fact that Judy Garland originated the song, I don't know how many people actually know that it was for this movie.
Yes. And she sings it to Margaret O'Brien, and Margaret gets so sad. Well, Tootie. Tootie gets so sad because they're gonna be leaving this house, and they have built all these snowmen outside. Next thing you know, Tootie's outside. She's got a baseball bat. She is hitting all the snowmen, tearing them down because if they can't have them, nobody can have them because they can't take them with them to New York. And she's just crying her eyes out. And there's a beautiful scene. The dad has witnessed this, and he's sitting in their living room, and Esther walks Tootie, who is crying, back up because Esther is saying, wherever we are is home. We can make a home wherever we live. And it's almost like there's no place like home. Like in The Wizard of Oz, it was that same sentiment. Wherever we are as a family, we will be home. And the father is hearing this and he strikes a match and he wants to light a pipe. And you see the wheels turning. He's just thinking, and you see that match, and the fire gets closer and closer to his fingers. He moves his fingers back a little bit as he's thinking, and it keeps moving. And then he shakes it, Anna, Anna. And he calls Anna, his wife. He calls the family to come down, and he says, we don't have to move. We can make everything happen right here in St. Louis. And that's how he makes his decision. But the beauty of that scene, that moment with him holding that match, you see the wheels turning in his thought process, and you see that flame. I love it. Beautiful, beautiful moment.
I totally agree. And I just have to say that Margaret O'Brien's performance, it's this scene that's my favorite when it comes to her in this movie because I've never understood what it was that made her so believable because that girl is sobbing. And to be so little, it just makes me wonder what it took to get her to that point to where she is actually out there bawling her eyes out and it's so believable. Do you know?
I do.
Tell me.
Okay, so in this little documentary that I watched, there was an interview with an adult Margaret O'Brien, and there was someone else, another actress who was a really good crier, and her mom would basically say, well, you know, such and such is going to cry her eyes out in her next movie, or she would egg her on, or something like that. And it was a competition between these two girls at who could cry the best. And so she would give it everything she had. That's one story. That's Margaret O'Brien's story. Another story is that the mom would tell her things like, your dog is going to die, or your dog died. Well, one day she told Vincent Minnelli, this is his story. Vincent Minnelli said her mother came up and said, okay, you can make her cry. You just need to tell her something about her dog. And so he went up to Margaret O'Brien and said, your dog has been kidnapped.
So dirty. If I had to believe one story, I really want to believe that it was just Margaret and another child actor having a competition. Because the other one is just so dirty.
That was straight from Margaret O'Brien, that it was a competition. Another cute little bit about Margaret, she had lost her two top teeth during this time. And for consistency's sake, they made two little, we call them flippers. So two little teeth she could put in so that she looked the same throughout the movie. And she's doing a scene with Judy Garland, and all of a sudden those teeth flew out of her mouth and hit Judy Garland in the face, and they just laughed and laughed over that.
It's funny. Well,
Love
it's an
it.
iconic scene. It's wonderful. And I agree with you that just getting the time that Vincent Minnelli gave us to focus in on the father and watch him think through this predicament and weigh up his values and decide that it was worth foregoing the bonus he would have, the higher income he would get moving to New York in order to make his family happy and keep them where they felt secure and where they had roots and where they had relationships. He thought that was worth it. And I love how his delivery is basically to be like, Obviously, it's ridiculous to think of moving to New York. I don't know why anyone ever thought about it or brought it up. I don't know what we're all doing here with packed boxes around us. Obviously, we're staying in St. Louis, and that's his delivery of it. Just I don't know. It's just so endearing.
Yes, and of course, the end of the movie, they're all happy. Yay, they're gonna be staying. Okay. So they've all heard that they're gonna be staying in St. Louis, and they're very, very excited. And then we get to see one more time Warren Sheffield.
Warren. He's making his move. Okay, so you have to do the line delivery. So we quote this
Okay.
all the time in our household, to the point where my father, who does not know the movie as well as we do, will also quote this line. And Warren Sheffield busts up into their home, no announcement, to tell Rose that he doesn't care what she has to say about it. There's going to be no arguing. They are getting married. Then he makes his exit. And what does he say as he exits? Take it away, Mom.
He says, I love you. Merry Christmas, and storms off. We have said that our whole marriage. We say that all the time. And I love you. Merry Christmas. And Michael knows where it's from because we say it so much.
Yes, it's so funny. I do it too, and I don't think any of my family knows where it's from, but I go, I love you. Merry Christmas.
Great,
Oh,
great
it's so
scene.
good. And Rose is so blissfully happy. Oh, and the best part after that is the dad goes, I'd like to meet that boy someday.
Yes.
Love it.
And then, of course, they get to go to the World's Fair, and it's beautiful, and it's got electric lights, which were huge because they make a point of showing that they use gas. They had to dim them and this kind of thing. And so the house was very much to Sally's standards. She and Vincent Minnelli wanted it to be like the house she grew up in. And so a lot of that you see is what Sally remembers from when she was growing up. Meet Me in St. Louis is such an iconic film. Martin Scorsese said he based his directorial technique on Meet Me in St. Louis.
That's a huge compliment to Vincent Minnelli.
And Gene Kelly, who many people know who Gene Kelly is, Singing in the Rain, he said, this is the best musical of all time.
It's so good. I don't know that I can 100% agree because we haven't talked about Singing in the Rain, and I don't know that we'll ever get to on this podcast. But, it's a strong contender for the best musical. So I can't quite get on board with Gene's take, and that is a Gene Kelly movie, funny enough. But I will say that I agree that it's probably for me, it's in my top 5. And that's saying a lot.
Me too. Top 5 for sure.
So let's talk about the Broadway musical, Meet Me in St. Louis, which of course came after the film. So you and I both watched, let's see, I want to be careful about how I say this. Bootleg versions of musicals, for anyone who doesn't know, are unauthorized recordings of Broadway musicals, are illegal. They're not okay. We do not condone them. However, without them, I would never have gotten to experience Betty Garrett in a Broadway musical as one of my favorite characters ever. So with that, I'm not going to say how we were able to watch the bootleg version of this 1989 film. I'm not going to say that it is okay. If you want, I will say shame, shame, we are ashamed. But also at the same time, I don't regret it. But Mom and I have been able to watch a bootleg recording of the 1989 Broadway musical Meet Me in St. Louis with the original cast. And we have thoughts.
So it ran from November 2nd, 1989 to June 10th, 1990. And the opening scene was a trolley comes on the stage and they're singing Meet Me in St. Louis.
Incredible. I was watching this and my mind was blown at the sets. I could only dream of ever being on a stage with a set like that. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. I accept it. The sets of this musical are absolutely incredible. The moving trolley across the stage, the Victorian style homes where we get to see the whole outside from bottom to rooftop that then turn around on stage and we get to see the whole inside of the house, complete with stairs and a landing that the actors can actively use, is just mind-boggling to me. I love it. It's incredible. The Christmas tree that they had in the Christmas scene rivaled that you would see in the Nutcracker on stage in the ballet. It was just gorgeous. The whole show was stunning. Well, I think the big thing to say is that we don't have to go through a lot of the details about the musical simply because it very closely mirrors the movie. One notable difference was the fact that they actually included a scene from the book that is not in the movie. And it was the scene where the mother and the two oldest girls actively decide to deviate everyone else, especially the father, in trying to scrape up some money for Lon because Lon has spent
Yes.
all his money at college. They included that scene, which I think was kind of a dumb scene to include because I don't really care one way or another. But that's just me.
Right. The acting, of course, was very good. One thing a lot of people will say about older films, think, 30s, 40s, 50s, even maybe into the 60s, they look at it and they go, okay, they're being over dramatic, they're being melodramatic, they are overacting, that kind of thing. And you can see some of that with Margaret O'Brien, but she's stellar. You can
Mhm.
see it. You can see it in some films. However, when you are playing an iconic role that was originated by someone who was an icon like Judy Garland, it's hard for people not to compare you to her. And you realize just how special and how great Judy Garland was. You realize
Mhm.
how great Margaret O'Brien was. The 2D
Mhm.
on Broadway, I don't know who she was. There was no comparison. None. No comparison. And I mean, I felt like Esther did fine. Rose, they did fine. They spoke with very high pitched voices. I don't know if that was an acting choice or a directorial choice, but it was very annoying. It was a bit much for me. I don't know how you felt about that. It made me appreciate Judy Garland, Margaret O'Brien, that whole movie than I even did before, and I
Mm.
appreciated it.
I went into it knowing, obviously, as you did, that it was gonna be a different cast in the movie and preparing myself for that. And I will say that with an open mind, I really appreciated Donna Kane's performance as Esther. I think she did her best to honor Judy Garland's portrayal while making it her own, but she didn't make it too different because that would have been jarring for a lot of audience members who are only coming to this show because they love the movie. It would have been really
Mhm.
hard to see a completely different portrayal of Esther when you come to love Judy, right? And I have to say, when Donna sang, oh my gosh, I loved her voice. I really did. I thought she had a
Oh, yeah.
beautiful voice. I loved her rendition of The Boy Next Door. But when we got to Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, I was nervous because I'm like, this song is iconic and we're used to hearing Judy sing this. But she sounded beautiful and she belted more of the song than Judy does because with Judy, it's more intimate. We have close ups of her face, you know? We're there in the moment with her. From a stage where you're far back and you're watching an actress on an enormous stage in a huge theater, she's belting parts of that song, and I thought that worked really nicely, and it was beautiful. She sang really well. And Mom, this was her debut Broadway role,
Amazing.
so I was really impressed with her. I liked her as Esther.
Right. Mr. Smith, the dad, was played by George Hearn. He is a two-time Tony Award winner. So he won for Sunset Boulevard and La Cage aux Folles. Obviously, he
Mhm.
has done huge things. He came out, the audience applauded. When Grandpa came out there, audience applauded. But the one I was most shocked about was Betty Garrett. And you mentioned her. Betty Garrett played Katie, and I loved her. She got a couple of songs, which there were no songs for her in the movie, but they added songs, of course, for the stage musical, and she got a couple of songs, and I loved getting to hear her because she is one of my favorite characters in On the Town. She plays the taxi driver, if anyone has ever seen that wonderful movie with Gene Kelly. And the lady who plays Lucille Ballard in the Broadway show, her name is Karen Culliver. She's the daughter-in-law of Betty Garrett.
Wow. So a couple of things. For listeners who are familiar with Betty Garrett, you're awesome because not a lot of people are going to know that name. We know Betty Garrett because of my grandfather, who introduced my mom to incredible old films, who then my mother introduced me to them. So Betty Garrett, yes, On the Town with Gene Kelly and Frank Sinatra. She's amazing and she's hilarious. She was a great comedic actress. And she also did a version of okay, this is niche. She did a version of Baby It's Cold Outside with think I
Red
think it was
Skelton.
Red Skelton. Was it him or was it Red Buttons? Was it Red Skelton?
Red Skelton.
Okay. Betty Garrett did a rendition of Baby It's Cold Outside with Red Skelton. And it's hilarious because if you're familiar with the song, it's the man singing, but baby, it's cold outside, so you need to stay here. And the woman is protesting, oh, but my dad's going to be pacing the floor and my mother's going to be worried. And oh, I can't stay. What are you talking about? But in this version with Betty Garrett and Red Skelton, the roles are reversed. And she is the one who's trying to get him to stay. And he's saying, no, I really can't. And she's like, oh, but you can because it's cold. It is cold outside, baby. And it's so funny. And I loved that version so much that when we did a little Christmas variety show, and Mom, I was in this with you, and my husband and I did that version of the song. So we sang Baby It's Cold Outside, but I was the one singing, But Baby It's Cold Outside. And my husband was the one saying, no, I really got to go. I need to get out of here. And it was so much fun to do. I still love it. I would do it again. But it was Betty Garrett. I can still see her in my mind because I drew so much inspiration from how she sang the song. She is so funny and she was hilarious as Katie. And it was very special getting to see her play this part because wow, shocker. I liked her characterization of Katie more than the movie.
I loved her. Yes, she is wonderful.
Yeah, you're right. She gets a couple of songs. But then with Grandpa, he did too. He got a cute little song with Tootie and Agnes, and it was adorable.
Oh, it was so cute. What really confused me in this was the trolley song. Okay, the trolley was just fabulous. The trolley comes out and they're riding on the trolley and everything, and Esther is singing about the little trolley. And then she wakes up. It was her dream. That was weird to me. I said, why? She gets a note saying he can't join her on the trolley. So she sings. She must ignore him because she abhors him, the boy next door.
Yeah, okay. I had thoughts about this too. Because the trolley song in the movie is so sweet because we know she's hoping that John Truitt will arrive at the trolley and she'll get to ride the trolley with him. She's been looking forward to it. And so she has her whole cute little trolley song. He's not there for the majority of the song. And she is singing about this boy that she admires on the trolley. And she's singing about how grand it was to feel his hand in hers and their little flirtation. And then she looks over and he's on the trolley with her because he's managed to catch up to the trolley and he's there with her and she's embarrassed. And it's just this adorable little moment where they get to ride the trolley together. And on the stage, we did not get that. I was so disappointed because I could see that it was a dream sequence. I saw that that's where we were going because it starts out as a dream sequence. She's dancing with different male partners going, John, and it's not John. And then she goes to another male partner, John, it's not John. And she does it again, John, it's not John. And I was like, oh, well, this is a weird dream. If you've seen Oklahoma, you're familiar with dream sequences. They were pretty pervasive in old musicals. And so then the trolley comes out, and part of me was like, is this part of her dream? Because I don't see the natural transition. This doesn't make sense. And she sings the whole trolley song. I forgot all about the dream sequence. John is there and she's singing with him and they have this adorable moment at the end where they're both hanging on to the end of the trolley and holding hands and it is so cute and it just warms my chick flick little heart. And then she wakes up and it was all a dream and I was like, well, that's not fair. I'm mad.
Her singing that she must ignore him because she just abhors him, the boy next door. That reminded me very much of the book and how the girls would behave in the book.
I agree. And I think it reminded me, okay, she's 16. Okay, Ariel. Daddy, I'm 16. Okay, miss thing. So he can't show up. Big deal. Okay, it's not the end of the world. You're right. It was annoying. But what I liked is that he did stay through to the end of the story, which no guy did in the book. There was no guy who stayed true to the end of the story that the girls stuck with. And so I liked that with Esther. John was still like the guy. But even in the musical, when she's like, I abhor him, it gave more explanation for Tootie later, which I think may have been the reason for that, because it gives a different reason for why Tootie blames John for her split lip.
The split lip thing was really interesting. Tootie says he tried to kill me. Okay, John Truitt. But then all they say is she just fell on the ice and hurt herself. John was nowhere near.
But they ask her, Tootie, why did you blame John? If he had nothing to do with it. Why did you blame him?" And Tootie says, "Well, I heard you say you hated him, so I thought that maybe it would make you feel better if I hated him too," or something to that effect. And I was like, "Oh, well, okay."
Speaking of skating on the ice, wow, Act 2
Yes.
opens
How did they do that?
opens with everyone ice skating. I don't know how they did it.
Me either. It was amazing.
It was stunning. It was one of the most beautiful scenes I have ever seen, and it made me so desperately want to be able to see that live on stage.
Yes, I wanted to see this whole musical on stage. I think it would have been a really magical experience, and I cannot believe that it only went from November to June, if that's what you said. I
Mm.
can't believe that because it seems like it was a truly spectacular show. And that ice skating opener with, I think it was Rose singing, and she sounded beautiful, but
Mhm.
seeing all these dancers actually ice skating on the stage, I'm looking at their blades going, how did they do this? There's not actually ice on the stage. How did they do this? It was incredible. I was so impressed. I loved it.
It was wow. There are very few shows where I have been wowed. Phantom of the Opera, I'm wowed. This, I was wowed. Just not
Yeah.
understanding how they did that scene. I do not know. It was just
Man,
fantastic.
I'm really disappointed that you don't know how that you didn't know because I was really looking forward to asking you because I just knew you would be like, "Oh yeah, this is how they did it."
No, I have no clue. It was absolutely wonderful. But after the ice skating and everything, that's when we see Betty Garrett, who plays Katie. She gets her song, Give 'em a touch of the Irish. It is darling.
Yes, I agree. It was very cute. It was a cute little number. And do we know, were these this was this the same composer and lyricist that did the movie and these were just extra songs, or did someone else come on board to work on the musical for Broadway? Do you know?
That's a very good question. I did not look it up. I presumed that they were new composer lyricists.
I presumed the same thing. I want to know, listeners, if we're wrong. Do you know? Please tell us in the comments because if we have that wrong, we want to give credit where credit is due. But I didn't look that up. I have no idea. I will say, when we're talking about winter, the whole Christmas scene lived up to my expectations. I thought it was on par with the quality of the movie.
It was wonderful, and they did a beautiful, beautiful job. Same thing with the scheme, and same thing with the horrid dancers, even though I feel like we got to see more of that in the movie than on in the stage production. Got a glimpse of it, but Grandpa came to the rescue and saved Esther. And then we did get to see John Truitt behind the tree, and that was lovely.
Here's where I was disappointed with the book. We don't get to know anything about Lucille in the book. We just know that Esther and Rose want to ruin her night, really, and punish her, even though they've never met her. And then all we know is that they come home from the party and that their plan worked, their scheme worked. Woohoo, we won. We beat this poor girl from the East who knows nobody here and no one was a friend to her. Wow, great. Kudos to you, girls. I don't know. I did not enjoy that. I like that in the movie and then also subsequently in the musical, Lucille turns out to be just the loveliest girl, and there's no denying it. And she does the same thing that she does in the movie, which is she goes up to Rose and she goes, "We're adults. You want to be here with Warren. I want to be here with Lon. Let's trade." And they do. And that's when Esther just takes the brunt and goes, "Okay, I'll dance with all the horrible guys."
And the Broadway musical ends the way it should. They go to the fair and they get to see all of the lights, and it was just beautifully done. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm glad I got to see it that way. I would love to see that maybe one day in person, but it would have to be on Broadway because I don't think anyone else would be able to ice skate on stage.
That was really incredible. Yeah, it just wouldn't be the same number without that feature. I was so glad to be able to see this version, even if there's some morally gray issues with it. I really appreciated getting to see it.
There's one more thing that I did watch. 1966, they tried to do a TV show called Meet Me in St. Louis. Meet Me in St. Louis. Audience, how do you say it? Do you say Louis or Louis? It's debatable. I go back and forth. Meet Me in St. Louis. And Celeste Holm played the mother. She's in high society. She's one of the reporters with Frank Sinatra, and she's great in that role. Beautiful, beautiful lady. And Rita Shaw plays Katie. You will know her as the cook in Mary Poppins, and she's at the cook in Pollyanna. Wonderful character actress. I happen to have the pilot on my 2-disc special edition of Meet Me in St. Louis. So I watched it.
It's wild.
There is no Rose. They took Rose out of the family. She does not exist. They do have the brother, but his name is not Lon. It's Glenn. So Glenn decides he's not going to go off to college. He is going to hang out with Ida. He's fallen for this lady named Ida. Now, the boy next door
Look in the
is
book.
there named John. Yes. So they've known each other for years and years and years. The whole episode centers around this party, and Ida's going to be there, and everyone's just head over heels over Ida. And Esther is so jealous. Well, John says that she's jealous of Ida. And to prove that Esther is not jealous, she tells John, well, I want you to flirt with her and hang out with her, enjoy your time with her to get her away from Glenn. And John says, really? You want me to do that? Why? So, anyway, that's what they do. And then, lo and behold, Esther gets upset when her scheme works. And so John is with Ida all night long, and she doesn't like that one bit. In the end, we find out that John is helping Ida to escape from her house. Esther thinks they're going to run off and elope because she's going to jump to wrong conclusions, but she's actually escaping her house to meet up with her fiance who comes to take her away to elope. So I can see why a network did not pick it up. I do like the movie the best. What about you, Victoria?
Obviously, I love the movie the best. That's an easy choice, and I don't think anyone's going to fight me over it. But if you want to fight me, go ahead and let me know in the comments. I'll fight you on it. So, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this podcast where we discussed Meet Me in St. Louis. Please remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you get reminded of any episodes that we upload. Also, remember, if you want to follow us on Instagram, we are at watching_books. Please give us a follow because we'll give you little hints as to what episode we are going to be posting next, and we want you guys to guess, see if you can figure out what we're going to be posting next. We will post every Friday through the end of this year, and then we're going to figure out what our schedule looks like next year. So we'll keep you abreast of all of that. You can find me on Instagram at vdspringer.author, and you can find my mom on Instagram at lauradawson.author. So give us a follow, keep up with us and what we're doing, and thank you so much for joining us yet again.
Thank you so much for those who have come and have listened to our podcast or watched it on YouTube. We appreciate it. And I hope that we can continue to offer some neat insights as to these wonderful books and movies and shows.
Yes, thank you so much. Let us know what your favorite version of Meet Me in St. Louis is, and catch us next time when we watch books.